without wading through just endless reports and studies.
Yeah, exactly. Who has the time?
Well, that's pretty much what we're doing today. Think of this as your shortcut to being seriously informed about the rising tide of anxiety and mental health challenges facing the younger generation.
And to help us navigate this really crucial landscape, we're diving into Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. It's quite insightful.
It is, and this isn't just like one person's opinion, is it? It's an analysis built on some really solid ground.
Absolutely. Haidt pulls together a lot of information. We're talking hard data from the CDC, giving us the raw numbers on these trends,
Right.
global perspectives from the World Health Organization, the extensive work of researchers like Jean Twenge. She's been tracking generational shifts for ages.
Yeah, her work is fascinating.
In-depth data from Pew Research Center on how young people are actually living their lives, and even some pretty revealing internal stuff from the social media companies themselves.
That's always interesting when that comes out.
So our goal for this deep dive, it's straightforward, really. We want to pull out the core arguments Haidt makes, look at the evidence he lays out,
Okay.
and really get a handle on the solutions he's proposing. And we'll try to do it in a way that's, clear, engaging, and directly relevant to understanding what's going on.
Okay, sounds good. So let's get right to it. What's the central problem that Haidt identifies right at the start? What's the absolute core issue here?
Well, the fundamental issue, the thing that really sets the stage for the whole book, it's the significant and frankly concerning surge in anxiety, depression, and instances of self-harm among young people. And this isn't just a feeling, an impression. The stats from places like the CDC and the WHO, they clearly show this upward trend. It really kicks off around the early 2010s. It's a very pronounced shift.
Wow. Yeah, that's a stark picture. And Haidt puts forward a main argument, like a central idea about what he thinks is driving this increase, right?
He does. His main thesis revolves around what he calls the great rewiring of childhood.
The great rewiring.
Yeah. He argues that the widespread introduction and then the rapid adoption of smartphones and social media have fundamentally reshaped the whole experience of growing up.
Right.
And that this massive shift is a primary engine behind these mental health challenges we're seeing now. And this lines up with research from people like Twenge and Campbell, who've shown clear generational differences in well-being linked to, when the tech arrived. And the Pew data just shows how deeply embedded these devices are now. They're just part of kids' daily lives.
A great rewiring. Yeah, that phrase really captures the scale of it, doesn't it? Because when you actually stop and think, kids' daily lives now, they're almost unrecognizable compared to just, say, our childhoods.
Totally unrecognizable. Haidt draws this really sharp contrast between what he calls a more, let's say, traditional childhood, one with lots of unstructured free play, a certain amount of independence to explore the world, real face-to-face social interactions. Contrast that with the current reality, which is so often mediated through screens. Phone-based, basically.
And he really hammers home the importance of that free play, doesn't he? It's not just kids having fun. It's something much more fundamental.
Absolutely. He relies heavily on Peter Gray's work. Gray has documented extensively just how vital free, unsupervised play is for development. It's in those unstructured moments that kids learn resilience. They figure out how to solve problems on their own.
Right, trial and error.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they build crucial social skills through, direct interaction, negotiation, figuring things out together. These are lessons that are just really hard to replicate online.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You can't really learn to read subtle social cues through a text message the way you do when you're actually, face-to-face with someone, especially during those little playground squabbles or whatever. And it does feel like those kinds of real-world interactions are just happening less.
The data certainly points that way.
Yeah.
Organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, they've noted a pretty significant drop in face-to-face social time and also in the amount of time kids spend outdoors.
Right.
So that experiential learning, the stuff you get from actually doing things in the physical and social world, it's increasingly being swapped out for, more solitary screen time.
Now, Haidt also points out that this crisis, it doesn't hit everyone the same way, does it? He talks about differences between girls and boys.
Yes, and this is a really critical point. For girls, the research strongly suggests negative impacts from constant social comparison. The huge issue of cyberbullying, which can be brutal, and the significant effect of these highly visual image-focused platforms. Think Instagram, Snapchat on body image, and just general self-esteem.
Yeah.
Gene Twench's research consistently shows these gendered differences and, that leaked internal research from Instagram, the Facebook
Oh,
fold.
yeah, I remember that.
That gave some really concerning insights into how the platforms themselves knew about the potentially harmful effects they were having, particularly on teen girls.
Yeah, those files definitely shone a light on some worrying stuff. Okay, so what about for boys? What are the main challenges Haidt highlights for them?
For boys, the trends seem to center more around gaming. Now, online gaming can be social, of course,
Sure.
but there are also significant risks. Uh, Risks of increased social isolation, maybe delayed development of certain social and emotional skills, especially if gaming becomes the main way they engage, pushing out more varied real-world experiences.
It all seems so tangled up, doesn't it? Less real-world stuff, more screen time, different pressures for girls and boys. And then there's this other idea he brings up about kids having less independence now, less autonomy.
Exactly. Haidt talks about safetyism.
Safetyism.
Yeah, this sort of increasing trend towards maybe overprotective parenting and fewer chances for unstructured time, independent exploration. He argues that this, even though it's often well-intentioned,
Of course.
can accidentally hinder kids developing crucial psychological resources. If they have fewer chances to navigate their world on their own, solve their own little problems, even face minor risks or setbacks,
Right.
they miss out on building resilience. They don't build those coping mechanisms as effectively.
It's that whole idea that we learn by doing,
Yeah.
right? But the opportunities for that kind of real-world doing seem to be shrinking.
Precisely. Think about Lenore Skenesi's work, the whole free-range parenting idea.
Yeah, letting kids walk to school alone, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Her research really highlights the potential downsides of being maybe too risk-averse when raising kids.
Yeah.
And Haidt himself wrote about safe spaces, dangerous ideas related to universities. But there are parallels here. This idea that shielding young people from all discomfort or challenge can actually limit their ability to handle a complex world later on.
And this isn't just like a U.S. problem, is it? He makes it clear this is happening elsewhere, too.
That's a really critical piece. Haidt stresses that this big rise in mental health issues since around 2012, it's not just isolated here. He points to very similar patterns showing up across many other wealthy nations.
Okay.
He cites data like the CDC's youth risk behavior surveillance here, but also surveys like NHS Digital's in the UK. They all show comparable upward trends, which strongly suggests there are bigger, more widespread societal shifts happening.
Okay, so we've got a clearer picture of what's happening, some of the big shifts like less play, less independence. Let's dig deeper now into the why, specifically social media. What are the main ways these platforms seem to be feeding into anxiety?
Right. So there are several core mechanisms Haidt points to. First, just a constant exposure to curated lives, often idealized versions of other people's lives. That fuels social comparison.
Yeah.
Which can lead to feeling inadequate, anxious about your own life. Then there's FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Yes. FOMO.
That endless stream of updates, parties, vacations. It can create this nagging feeling that everyone else is having way more fun or success than you are.
Right. That feeling that everyone else is living their best life while you're just scrolling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the very serious issue of cyberbullying. It can be relentless, inescapable sometimes, and have really profound psychological effects. And beyond those direct things, the algorithms themselves, they often seem designed to target and amplify users' insecurities. They feed you content that might keep you hooked, sure, but can also make negative feelings and anxieties worse.
It's like pouring fuel on the fire sometimes.
Kind of. And it's worth mentioning, there was that Danish study where people took a break from Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
And they reported positive impacts on their well-being. It highlights the potential toll these platforms can take. And researchers like Mitch Prinstein, the APA, they've looked into how powerful online peer influence is, how it shapes young people's mental states.
It really sounds like a perfect storm of factors, all amplified by these incredibly powerful tools that are just everywhere now.
They really are ubiquitous.
And going back to play for a second, you mentioned online socializing doesn't really offer the same developmental benefits as being face-to-face.
That's absolutely right. Online interactions can offer some connection, sure, but they don't fully replicate that crucial experiential learning that happens with physical cooperative play.
Okay.
That kind of play is essential for developing a sense of agency, feeling like you have some control over things, plus self-regulation skills, overall confidence.
Right.
The research by Peter Gray again and Anthony Pellegrini, they really emphasize the developmental significance of play. Even studies looking at playground risk.
Like climbing trees and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Those seemingly risky things actually provide invaluable chances for learning and growth that you just don't get staring at a screen. It's about figuring out limits, problem solving in real time.
So Haidt doesn't just leave us with the problem, thankfully. He does lay out a kind of roadmap, potential solutions, pathways to maybe creating some positive change. What are his main proposals?
He focuses on 4 key reforms he thinks could make a big difference for healthier development. The first 2 are about timing, specifically delaying smartphone adoption for kids.
Okay, holding off longer.
And also delaying the age when young people start using social media platforms. His reasoning is basically to give kids more crucial time for real-world development, for interaction, before they get plugged into that constant online world.
That makes intuitive sense. It's like letting their brains and social skills mature a bit more offline before they have to navigate all the complexities of the digital world. What are the other 2 reforms?
The third is about consciously trying to restore play-based neighborhoods. So creating safer, more accessible places where kids actually have more chances for that unsupervised outdoor play we were talking about.
Right, getting kids outside and playing together again.
And the fourth is about actively fostering real-world group belonging, encouraging participation in face-to-face activities, sports teams, clubs, community groups, anything that gives a sense of actual physical community and shared purpose.
Okay.
And he does point to examples, communities that have put in screen time rules, or school districts that are boosting recess and outdoor learning time as potential positive models.
So it's not just about individual families making choices then, it's also about the kind of communities and environments we all create for kids to grow up in. It sounds like he thinks we need to tackle this on multiple levels.
Precisely. His call to action really emphasizes needing both individual and collective responsibility.
Okay.
So on an individual level, yeah, parents setting up family tech plans, boundaries, that kind of thing. But he also stresses the need for collective action policy changes, tech industry reforms.
Like what specifically?
Things like pushing for school-wide phone bans, getting more robust age verification for social media, which is a tricky one, technically.
Yeah, very tricky.
And pushing tech companies for greater transparency and more ethical design. Basically, making the digital environment less harmful by design. He mentions places like France and the UK that have tried school phone bans, and research on how community efforts can shift social norms around tech use.
So the overall message, it sounds like it's one of, well, maybe hope.
Right.
That this isn't just how things have to be.
Absolutely. Haidt definitely concludes by arguing that it is entirely possible to create an environment that better supports healthy development, supports resilience in young people. But
there's always a but.
well, yeah, it requires a conscious, concerted effort. We have to prioritize freedom, real connection, meaning in-person connection, and those essential real-world interactions. It won't happen by accident.
This has been a really, really valuable deep dive. Definitely covers a lot of ground on a truly important issue. It certainly makes you reflect, doesn't it, on your own relationship with technology and how it impacts you.
It does.
Maybe, it's worth considering in our own lives, in our communities, what small, concrete steps could we maybe take based on this discussion? Steps to cultivate a bit more of that freedom, that connection, that real-world engagement, not just for the young people around us, but maybe for ourselves too.
That's a great point. It plays across the board, really.
Yeah, definitely something to keep thinking about.